It is so incredible to have you and to have this opportunity to dialogue with you. I am really excited. I have so much enthusiasm for the work that you have been doing and then the culmination of your new book.
First of all, thank you for having me in this conversation, Veronica. I think you were such a you played such a pivotal role, and Newfield, right? Played such a pivotal role in kind of very early stages of my journey. This journey for me, as I shared with you, actually started, almost 5, 6 years ago, and it started from actually whispers that were starting to become screams. And I was waking up, Veronica, at 42 or 43 with high degrees of anxiety, right? Which after going through the program, I realized, right? And I was trying to like figure out, why do I wake up every morning so anxious that I feel like I need to throw up? And there was nothing externally wrong, right? And this is where, to me, when we had gone into the whole moods discussion about how we have moods, but moods can have us, that was a big unlock for me, right? Because I was trying to logically figure out why I'm so anxious, and I couldn't find a reason. I mean, I had inklings of what it might be, but, it wasn't anything out there, right? And learning, actually, that was a big part of my learning along the way, of learning how to actually shift moods and master moods and start to kind of change my own context. It started actually in Portugal at a monastery, one of the oldest monasteries in Europe. Unfortunately, a Ritz-Carlton site by now, but still, I think the spiritual energy about the place was amazing. And for the first time there in that week, I had disconnected from the busyness of life. I had disconnected from technology. And the program allowed me to really go deep into the core essence of who I was, which had been all about relationships, right? And it also introduced me to a set of tools that I had never heard of, never discovered. And so I decided that day at the end of the week that I was going to go learn as much as I could. And that journey brought me to you and Julio and the ontological coaching program, which was a big part and became a core part of what's underneath this book, Hardwired for Happiness. But I also I read 450 other books across spirituality, psychology, neurosciences. I did courses with neuroscientists, I did courses with psychologists, I did courses with mystic teachers out of India. And over COVID, decided to actually take the time and kind of distill the learnings from all of these amazing teaching and wisdom traditions and science into these 9 practices that I write about.
So Ashish, tell me a little bit about, I know that Newfield has influenced in the writing itself of the book, because as I was reading it, I got to see elements where you wove in the Bell model and weaving in around the moods and emotions and certain distinctions there. But I'm also curious around how Newfield impacted you in terms of what you saw was possible for you to move into in life. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a beautiful question, actually, Veronica, because, look, at the heart of the, OAR Bell model is the observer that you are, right? Allows you to either take very, very, just humdrum kind of actions, interventions, right? We call them transactional interventions to try and change things, or you can actually fundamentally do transformational moves. And while there were tons of tools that I picked up from different spaces in my book. I picked up some amazing work from Gallup around strengths. I picked up some amazing work around passions and discovering your passions. I found some amazing work from, a couple of folks at Stanford Design School. I picked up this amazing tool called mind mapping that allows you to kind of really start from your strengths and passions and really expand and create transformational ideas rather than incremental ideas. I'm a consultant, so maybe I can start my own consulting firm. Maybe I can be an internal consultant to companies. Maybe you know what I mean? These are all like really, really small stuff versus really big stuff, which is kind of where I got to. So I picked up these tools that could actually help. But you know what? The biggest difference that was made, none of these would have had as much impact without actually fundamentally integrating the ontological coaching tools to shift the observer who was actually going to be generating. So this notion of being aware that, listen, there are certain moods and there are certain somatics, certain, if you will, where am I feeling energy wise, as well as some of the kind of somatic dispositions that are more suited to big idea thinking, right? So I think being able to consciously step into those spaces when I was actually at my best made a huge difference, right? I think the second big part was around we all do, right? That's a very firm statement, but we all have very definitive beliefs around what's possible for us and what's not. What we will have, quote unquote, approval from the world to do based on our histories and what we don't. And the notion of that, those are just assessments, they're not actually facts. And we can actually have different conversations to explore the possibilities was something that I actually picked up from Newfield, right? So the tools, it's all about the consciousness through which you wield the tools are the results you get. And that core consciousness, I could actually build that differently using the learnings from Newfield. So I think that was at the heart of it. So like that's my invitation for people who are, our coaches, right? Is really apply this to yourself as you think about how do we actually take this work that we've just learned and really bring it and become the best version, right? What has life prepared you uniquely in terms of your experiences, in terms of your core way of being, in terms of skills, and really use that to be truly transformational versus just incremental, is I'm just going to now become a coach because I went through a coaching program. That's not what this work is really about.
Yeah, and I believe I love what you're saying. I believe that the work, the fundamental core elements of the ontological coaching tradition can be integrated into any profession, any domain, any aspect of life, but also, as you're pointing to really invite us to make these big jumps in life, where
Yes,
perhaps we see a path that is sequential and that's already outlined, but we begin to recognize, well, that's not the only path, right? That there are these big leaps and jumps that we can make, big moments of integration, and to expand our own sense of how we can move in the world and what's actually possible in life.
exactly. I think the world is filled with possibilities. And I think that is, I think we don't give ourselves, frankly, too much credit, and we don't give the universe too much grace to allow us to expand into those possibilities. And if we did, I think we'd have a very different world.
I was enjoying the section of your book where you look at purpose. And what was coming to me as I was reading it was the sense of, if I allow the courageous voice in me to speak in terms of future, what is that courageous stance of how I want to navigate moving forward? And just that invitation to create space in life to contemplate those questions, right? To check in. And I was very much enjoying some of the questions in that particular chapter. I found they were perturbing and poking and kind of prodding, like there's an invitation here to do something outside of what we ordinarily do. And I think that as people who are dedicated to transformational work, that invitation to step out of our habituated way of doing and step into really a path that is more heart-centered, a path that, as you were mentioning before, is more anchored in our own sense of meaning, and the inherent joy that is connected to.
Absolutely. That is one of the only ways we can truly, experience joy, right? Is through meaning.